Every sound that I make, let it have the vibration of thy voice. Every thought that I think, let it be saturated with the consciousness of thy presence. Let every feeling that I have glow with thy love. Let every act of my will be impregnated with thy divine vitality. Let every thought, every expression, every ambition be ornamented by thee. O divine sculptor, chisel thou my life according to thy design. So sooner or later, for all of us, meaning not just those of us in this room, but everyone that's incarnated into human form, arrives at a point where there's the understanding, the realization that this world isn't where it's at. It's not going to give us what we seek. And the words that various traditions use for what we're seeking may be heaven, nirvana, satchidananda, which means ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss. But there's a delightful little story about a priest in this little village going past the pub one night for a walk and looking through the windows and seeing a lot of his parishioners in the pub. So he goes in there indignant with this, and he pulls them out and brings them to the church, and he has them stand there and he says, for all those who want to go to heaven, stand over here. And they all do, except for one man. And the priest says real fiercely to this man, you don't want to go to heaven? No. And the priest says, so you're standing there telling me you don't want to go to heaven when you die? Oh, of course I want to go to heaven when I die. I thought you meant now. And that's humorous for us to hear, but we play that part all the time. We, in a sense, have this behind-the-scene desire that, of course, we want to be in heaven, in that consciousness of the oneness of God. But do we make that choice in every moment of our lives? And that's really the challenge before us. How high should we aspire? Well, of course, to the highest, where we really become one with the divine. But it's interesting in the English language that there's a difference between aspiration and expectation. Most of us, though, use them synonymously. We use them almost interchangeably. But in this case, it's a subtle but important difference for us to understand and then relate to. Because expectation holds a little bit of the caveat of, I should be, and this is where I need to be. Aspiration is holding high to our awareness what the highest possibility is. But with aspiration has to come the next step. Because with expectation, we tend to fall into judgment. We tend to fall into self-criticism, either ourselves or others, and we actually block that possibility of our growth. So, but aspiration is really a lifting up to that high potential. The highest potential, not even the high potential, the highest potential. Because it's the call of the soul that is the aspiration. Expectations tend to come from the ego. And they already have a sense of being tainted when we have expectations, because we want something from it. And the moment we want something from something, we're going to probably be always on the outside looking in. Where an aspiration is more the offering, the release of ourselves, letting go of the things that are not ourselves. So it's truly the soul call. And when we have that, then there's a grace that comes that allows us to not become something more, but to unfold to who we really are. So this idea of first realizing there's more to life than what appears to be so, from our senses, from our perception of our ego. And that's really in the Indian philosophy systems known as Sankhya, where we truly see there has to be more than repeating all these opportunities or ways of doing things that seem to be always evading from the goal of being fulfilled. So Sankhya allows us to perceive, and it's an important step for all of us to grow spiritually, because if we're not able to see that the world is not going to give us what we really desire or look forward to, then we'll keep searching and searching. And by the time we've arrived in a room like this, coming to a focus of spiritual teachings in this way, hopefully we've tired, if not completely, to a great degree of always looking for that thing outside of ourselves to fulfill us. But Sankhya is, in a sense, just a landing point for our soul's memory of what's trying to happen. And so Smriti, the word in Sanskrit, is memory, remembering who and what we really are. And that allows us to go past of just the recognition of things aren't working out so good. And this is the challenge, because sometimes, drinking Pepsi seems to really work and you feel really, really happy. Or it might be perhaps something more meaningful, like a relationship or whatever it might be. I know Parvati and I, my wife and I, finally let go of our car, which we bought here when we were directing Ananda Portland back. It was in 2002, and it had its day, and so we let it go. So we bought a new used car, and this is in September. So within a week, I was parking in this empty parking lot down by the Master's Market store, if you know where that is, at Ananda Village. And there were only 2 other vehicles. And I saw this woman come out of the Master's Market store with a coffee, and I went into the mail room. And as I was coming back out of the mail room, I heard this noise. And I knew my car had been hit. This woman was like 30 yards away with a car beside her, and the only other car was my car, 30 yards away. And she just gently, banged into it. And she was completely distraught. I thought this was just perfect. Didn't have to worry about the car having an accident at that point. It had completed its mission of having that happen, so I didn't have as much of attachment. Oh, I've got to keep it really pristine and all that. But it was just ironic within a short time that the car had this thing. And it was such an unusual situation. But it's like that the more that we can release things that we know we've got some desire, some attachment, some link to that's not the right link, not the right connection, then we take those first steps of really letting go. And then we move into yoga. And it's interesting that in India, there's Sankhya, Yoga, and Vedanta. And in the West, we refer to them as systems of philosophy, because that's the best we can do in our understanding it in our language. But if you know what the word philosophy means, it means love of wisdom. Sophia is wisdom, and the other part, philo, like Philadelphia is city of brotherly love. So that love of wisdom. But these aren't describing us getting into appreciating philosophy, which is more a mind-born thing. So they use this word darshana, much like we have a darshana here, and we have a darshana at Ananda Village. But the way that the word darshana is used in this understanding is that it's the intuitive perception of deeper truths. And so yoga is understood less of the doing part, although that's significant as how we apply practically what's going to happen. But it's that intuitive perception of union. And then Vedanta is the complete fulfillment of that union without any duality at all. But it's a nice way to understand what's happening when we talk about aspiration. We're lifting ourselves up to that fulfillment in that way. So it's not appreciating it, it's becoming it. And so in the intuitive perception of yoga, and then its practical application, we really see in a simplified way that we have the inner emphasis, and then we have the emphasis of bringing that inner life into the world we live. So that we're not outside of duality, but we're not caught by duality. We're at the center, what's behind duality. Because we can't escape what's around us in the world. It will impose more and more on us if we try to escape from it. So what we can do is then go to the center of that experience, and then the pull of duality won't be that intense for us, and it starts to dissipate as its hold on us. But that inner life is really saying, this is my key to unlock the doors of awakening, the doors of heaven or nirvana or Satchidananda. And that inner life has to be as dynamic as any other part of our life, and truly the most dynamic part of our lives. I was reading this article about meditation that someone wrote in a slightly humorous way, that they have been exposed and written many articles on meditation, but haven't gotten into it. And, you know, it's just such an epitome of the Western way. Let's look at it from the outside. But she was listing 4 points that she and others that she was friends with that also didn't get into meditation, but knew a lot about it. That one would be removed from the world. So these are fears or intrepidations that were there. That by meditation you'd be removing yourself from the world. Well, if you've meditated at all, a little bit, you know that it enters you into the world, behind the world's expression, into what the world really is. It's how you relate to people better is because you're more who you are, and you're not relating to the personality so much of the other person. You're relating more from the depth of who you are in your soul to another soul. So that's a hesitation on many people's part, is that, will I be as alive if I start to meditate? Well, in truth, you only become alive when you start meditating. You're on the periphery of your own life without that connection that meditation allows us to experience. So we're not thinking about what meditation gives us. We're in the experience of what meditation is giving us. And then she wrote about that, will I have the time to meditate? And that's a real concern. If you've ever taught meditation classes, or you know that people come with that concern. It's not a trivial thing for some people. But the reality is, as we, again, move into meditation, our brains, our whole consciousness start to become much more refined and much more able to handle life's challenges. And we nurture that connection of wanting to meditate more. As Yogananda wrote, that's recorded in the book, The Essence of Self-Realization, that the soul loves to meditate. As you meditate more, you want to meditate more. As you meditate less, you want to meditate less. So we have a directional choice. It's simple. The biofeedback mechanism is right there. We're going to be real to what's happening if we don't blind ourselves and say, well, I meditated, yeah, it was a week ago, I'm sure I meditated, or something like that. But so this idea that we lose time in our lives because we meditate, that fear, it dissipates because we start to find, as we meditate more, we find that we're more effective in how we're living our lives. The challenges that come to us don't soak up all our anxiety attacks and all our pressures of worries to get this accomplished. We start to refine that connection with what's around us. And the solutions come because we're lifting ourselves out of the subconscious tendencies and out of the conscious entanglements to raise our awareness to the superconscious level, which is where the solutions lie. And so we're being more effective. So it's not a matter of time or not, because the time we have in every moment of every day becomes much more the experience of us being expanded and enjoying the life around us. And then the other, I can't remember the third point, the fourth point was, will I become a New Age hippie? Well, yes. No. And what's behind that, I mean, it's a humorous part that she played up, but what's behind that is, will I lose my self-identity? And depending on if that S has a small s letter or a capital letter, yes or no. You will lose, as you grow more, of that identity to a little ego self. But that really is just a covering of who you are. It's not who you are. But we all identify at times strongly to that as being our identity. But what we start to do is become more identified with the larger self, the soul self, the true self, that isn't tainted by all of the things that happen in life. So we nurture that more and more. But what this leads to then is from that inner experience where we offer ourselves. And again, remember this always, that the more you meditate, the more you want to meditate. And Yogananda said, you know, there are going to be times when we're going to have restless, seemingly unproductive meditations. He said, just keep moving forward. By the offering itself in meditation, we're clearing the house. Even if we don't recognize that result completely. Because the conscious mind isn't that well suited to understand what's happening in meditation. So don't worry about if you're feeling, this isn't working for me. That's really the ego coming in saying, good, here's my opportunity. I can come in and this is a good springboard for getting this guy I'm with to stop meditating as much. But if we just continue, and again, the word offering is an amazing key for us in our lives. I was going to say spiritual lives, but really in our lives. Sometimes we use the word intention, but we intend to do something. I would suggest that when we use the word offering, and that means offering with our whole energy, it's less tied in with wanting to get somewhere, wanting to have a result. But it really is that we're tapping into a flow, and that flow is grace. So we're offering ourselves into a current that's already happening. And in that offering, we really come to, again, the experience that we're longing for, because that's the soul call from within. But in the express life that we have, in the life in this world of duality, it isn't as if we just have to cope and survive. We actually can utilize that offering that comes from that inner experience of meditation and deepen our connection with the divine in our outer life. It's not a drag on our energy and consciousness. It's the way that we're going to grow even more. And if we can just turn our spotlight of tuning into the fulfillment we seek into every part of our lives, then we bring that aspiration into everything. The mundane things that we see in our lives, you know, the things, even the repetitive things that we do every day, they become enlivened because we're choosing to be on the inside of the experience rather than viewing them from the outside trying to get somewhere. And so the whole idea of the phrase that Paramahansa Yogananda emphasized, center everywhere, circumference nowhere, really embodies that experience. It's not just a phrase. It embodies that experience that we start to know as our own, that it's not from the ego that centeredness is everywhere. It's coming from the depth as we reach our own center. That center touches every other center in the universe. And as we feel that expansive nature coming into our practical living moment to moment. It's not a removed spirituality, it's an engaged spirituality. And when we have that, we really realize we're cooperating with the divine flow, that grace is something we're going to bring our awareness, even our will, as a part of that. But as we engage in that merging of that awareness with divine consciousness, then we really are enlivened to the degree that we were made to be. We were made in the image of God, and that's what this reflects, that we live, we are that image of God. And then there's no image anymore. We simply are in that oneness of the divine. Let's take a moment to meditate.